You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, home of the 2-hour deep dive interview with gold, platinum, and multi-platinum bands, including Stained, Blue Rodeo, The Arkells, Finger 11, Big Wreck, Moist, Bedouin Soundclash, I Mother Earth, Ill Scarlet, Neverending White Lights, Thornley, and many more. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, as well as share, comment, and like. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He achieved a level of mastery as the drummer for the multi-platinum band Stained, and he's currently focused on releasing new music with his band Lydia's Castle. So welcome to the podcast, making his triumphant return, one of my favorite drummers of all time, John Wysocki. John, how are you, and how are you feeling today after a couple of days being a little bit under the weather?
I'm feeling a lot better. Thanks for asking, Joel. Appreciate that. It just kind of hit me. I went out with some friends a couple nights ago, and just being in the bars around a lot of people, that kind of thing. So I'm doing all right, though. Doing okay.
That's good. You were saying sometimes the allergies kick in as well.
Oh, and yes, of course. And then, yeah, the allergies here are pretty rough right now. So combination of both, but anyway, doing a lot better. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm glad you're feeling better. And today is a celebration. So this is episode 100 of the podcast. So it's 3 years in the making, episode 100. And I wanted a very special guest for this episode. As you know, Stain's Break the Cycle goes back to when I was 16. It's still one of my favorite albums of all time. I had you as a guest back in July of 2022, episode number 68. And in the 3 years of the podcast, that is still in the top 5 most downloaded episodes of all time. So you were the man for the job for episode 100, and I'm happy you're here with me today.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and congratulations to you on your 100th episode too.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, 100, it doesn't sound like that much, but there's a stat that 90% of podcasts never make it past episode number 3, which sounds ridiculous, but most people start it, they realize it's a lot of work, nobody pays attention for a very long time, and they bail. So episode 100, here we are. And for those that are tuning in and seeing John here for the first time, we did a full 2-hour deep dive interview back on episode number 68, covered your life, your career, your discography. So go back and check out that one, because we're going to do something different today. So we're going to spend maybe 30 minutes catching up on what you've been up to since the last interview. And then we are going to dive into your 5 favorite albums. So this is a new series where we get returning guests, the most popular guests in the show's history, and we just nerd out on incredible music. And hopefully for the listeners, they discover new music along the way, albums that mean a lot to us, that we believe are worthy of their time and attention. So let's start by catching up. So it's been about a year since you've been on. I know you've been busy with Lydia's Castle. The last time we talked, you guys you had released an EP and you were deep into the writing of a new album. So I just want to check in. Has there been more writing? Has there been recording? What can the Lydia's Castle fans expect?
Yeah, that's exactly what we've been doing, actually. We are continuing to write. We're kind of taking this time right now. It just seems the landscape for new bands right now, it's really tough to break through. So I think we're taking this time, we're taking this time to just to write as much as we possibly can. And in fact, last night we got together and we came up with 3 more ideas. Now, that they weren't finished top to bottom, but they were we're just gathering up riffs and ideas and things of that nature to hopefully put together as a song as well. But yeah, we did a little touring as well. Went out with Saving Abel for a little bit, and we did some shows of our own as well. Some local up and coming rock bands, you could say, we've done some shows with, and we've been perceived pretty well so far. So hopefully this new stuff will do the same thing.
So I've been a fan of Saving Abel since they got big with their song Addicted, which was like a global smash. This is back in like 2008. You were still in Stained back then. Is that how you know the band? Is that how you guys connected for these shows?
Yes, yeah, I remember them a little bit from back in the day. However, they live in Nashville too now. So, um, and Dave, who is their new drummer, I've known him before he was with Saving Abel, and and so anyway, I'm glad. I was real happy for him when he ended up getting a gig for that. But yeah, I run into those guys every now and again, and they're out doing the same thing, you know, just pounding the pavement. And you know, they have a new one out as well too. So yeah, go check that out. It's good. And you know, they've always been a really good, solid band as well. I agree with you on that for sure. Um, but yeah, super nice guys. But yeah, I'd say the connection as far as myself and them is getting to know them a little bit more since we both live in the same city. Yeah.
And I saw that you guys recently announced some upcoming shows. I believe it's in August. You have at least a couple shows coming up. What can fans expect if they can physically make it out to those shows?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot more to come to. Those are just a few that those particular venues wanted us to release early, so we did. And that's actually going back home for me. Those are my old stomping grounds as far as where, you know, Stain came up, and that, you know, the New England area. So it'll be really fun. It'll be nice to see some people I haven't seen in a while, and yeah, looking forward to that stuff. And but we do have more coming up that we have not announced yet.
So you mentioned that you knew the drummer from Saving Abel from before that time. I saw you recently post a picture with a couple drummers. One of them's Paul Crosby, the former drummer from Saliva. How do you know him? Is this back to, again, the Saliva and Stain days?
Yes, yeah, that is definitely. You know, living in Nashville too, you run into a lot of people that you have some memories with too. And me and Paul have always gotten along real well. He's such a good guy, and you know, he's doing his own thing right now. He's got his own band going, and he's got a management company. So he's doing well. He's doing well. But it was great to see Paul in that picture. We had a nice big dinner with some of his guys and his wife, and same. So it was great. It was great. Good to see him.
Is there like a special bond between drummers where you just kind of understand each other more than most people, where, you know, most people don't know what it's like to be the drummer, to do all the practicing, to lug all the gear, the struggles that come with drumming? Do you feel instantly if you meet someone and they're a drummer and you're a drummer, it's like, this is my dude, we're good?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of always been like that, it seems. I mean, there is definitely a certain bond, like you were saying, that we do have, and there's a respect factor as well. We all play a little bit differently, but we all like the same kind of thing, you know. But it's a lot easier to talk shop with drummers, as opposed to other players.
Especially if you're talking specific drum technique and terminology. The
Yes.
guitarists just don't get it, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, they have their own lingo too.
That's true. That's true. So as we wrap up with the Lydia's Castle stuff, what can fans expect from the new music? Are you looking at a just a few singles, an EP, a full length? Any idea?
Well, you know, that's something we've been bouncing around. So that's a good question. You know, the EP thing, it's really tough to say, Joel. I mean, I would. It seems like a lot of bands, new bands like us, are kind of released. They're going single by single. You know, just to kind of see what hits. You know what I mean? So I can't give you a solid answer on that right now, but I know we have the songs for more than an EP right now. So, but I think we might start with the just releasing of singles, and then, maybe at some point we'll do a full length or EP.
It's just, it's so tough with the landscape from music listeners because
Mhm.
you guys have enough music to release a full length album, but
Oh
even
yeah.
with that much music, or even with that, that many songs recorded, it's still at that point how you want to deliver the music. Do you think instead of doing a 10-song album, maybe if we did a 5-song EP and then 6 months later the other 5-song EP, like, will that gain more traction than 10 songs up front and they disappear in 3 months? Like, it's just hard to know what to do anymore.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. No one does know. And every band, not every band, but most of the bands that are coming out right now, I mean, especially the baby bands like ourselves, you know, it's hard to grab someone's attention maybe for 5 songs, you know what I mean? Where it might be a little easier just going song by song. Once, when people want to hear more, it's time for the next single to be released based off of what the last one did, then maybe you start thinking about an EP or a full length, you know what I mean? So it's so tough to gauge right now, man, where things are at. And I know eventually it's going to come around. It always does. So any of the young bands coming up, just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, whatever avenue you choose to go down, it's not the right one. It's not the wrong one. You never know until you try. So, yeah, that's
I
kind
get
of where we're at least.
I guess the most important thing is to do what you're doing, which is just keep writing, keep refining the songs and the music. And
Yes.
if the music is great, regardless of your delivery method, it will find its audience, and people will recognize that. So start with the
Yes.
music, and
Yeah.
then you'll figure it out as you go. And like you said, you're not really making mistakes. If you try this, you're going to learn, and you're going to course correct as you go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I mean, we've even found ourselves like, listening back to a song, maybe, I don't know, a month later, and be like, what, this part could be a little stronger right here. Or, it's this section, let's change the section around just to see how this works. You know what I mean? So, um, just, you got to do what you got to do to make the strongest possible songs that you can. And also make yourself happy at the same time too. Chances are, if you like it, most people will like it. At least people that like that style of music. Yeah.
So we have a fan question here that is asking about taking your experience with your previous band and being able to use that experience with your newer band. So this question is from Joshua Koloski. He asks, how did all your music industry dealings with record label and management politics and their cutthroat antics, how did that help prepare your new group on what to expect and how to deal with everything that comes when trying to become a major band?
First of all, thanks for the question. Well, that's a that's a tough question because you do, of course, you learn things. I mean, you learn things, on way to change certain things, or just maybe do things differently or go at it in a different way. But it's that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right or the wrong way. You know what I mean? And also too, the landscape of music has changed a lot since we first came out in Stained, when the band came out. So much has changed, and all digital era has kind of, it's been around a while now, but I'm just saying, that was a big change for us too. It had just was in the infant stages when we were doing it. So that's a good question, man. It's yes, to answer the question though, sure, you learn things along the way. And the industry, as much as, it just seems like a lot of things get watered down after a while. And Not that there's not enough, or not that there's for a lack of talent or anything like that, or good bands. It's just, there's just so much of it, and people can just only take so much of it, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's crazy how much the music industry landscape has changed from the start of Stain to where you are today. I mean, it was, music videos on Much Music and MTV. That's not a thing. People just go to YouTube anytime they want.
yep,
You've gone through the CDs, and now it's mostly streaming.
yep.
It's wild, man. You've seen it all. You've been there,
Yes,
inside the
yes,
trenches.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. And it's kind of there's some good things that came out of it, and some not so good things that came out of it too. So we'll see how it goes in the future.
So I have a couple questions about Stain, and then we'll dive into your 5 favorite albums. So Stain released a new single, "Lowest in Me," in April. They have a new album, "Confessions of the Fallen," which will be released later this year. So this is the first single and first album release since your departure way back in 2011. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on new music coming out from Stain? There's, I'm assuming, part of you, it's like, well, it might be strange because you were a part of that band for so long, and now there's music from that band and you're not a part of it. But then part of me thinks that it's a good thing if you were a part of the entire discography minus this new stuff. So if it raises all this awareness and popularity again, they're all going to go back and dive into the music that you were a part of and rediscover it all over again.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'm happy for them that they're doing that. I've only had the chance. I think everyone's really only had the chance to hear that one song, "Lowest in Me." I think it sounds like Stained. It's really heavy. Aaron's voice sounds amazing. All the playing is great. The drums, they're programmed, but they're done well, and I think it's a good song overall. So hopefully, I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of it, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah, the there's some screaming in it a little
Yeah.
later in the song, and then there's the guitar harmonic parts that Mike is known for. Those two
Yep.
things give it a little bit of a throwback to earlier Stain, where it was heavier and more aggressive. But then, like you mentioned with the programmed drums, there's like a what's the word? There's like a new sound to it as well. Like it sounds current because there's a little bit of programming and it's very
Right.
polished and well mixed and all those things. So you're getting kind of the best of both worlds, I find, with that single.
It is very produced, very produced. But I thought they did a good job with it. I mean, it's hey, what's good is good. It's a good song, and the music is great. And like I said, Aaron sounds fantastic. So it's got a good hook. It's got that heaviness, especially in that bridge section. I thought they did a good job.
Yeah, I'm digging it. As an old school Stain fan, I got it on my playlist, listening to it every day here. And one final question, we'll dive into your 5 favorite albums. And this question is because one of your favorite albums is from Korn. So I was, going through the Korn discography, and I just remembered the Family Values tour and how amazing that was. Stained was on the tour in '99 and 2001.
Mhm.
Can you share any memories from either of those tours? I mean, the live recording of Outside came from, I believe, the second Family Values tour stint that you were on. So it's like a very important tour. What are your thoughts and memories and emotions going back to those tours?
Oh God, great memories. Some I remember, some not so
Some people
well.
remind you about.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, the second Family Values, I believe that was Stone Temple Pilots, Linkin Park, us, Limp Bizkit, obviously because Fred and Aaron did Outside live, the live version of it. Man, there's just there's so many great memories of the Family Values tour. We had so much fun with all those bands. It's the best way to put it is it's like going to summer camp. You're with the same people all the time. every day. You're all doing kind of the same thing, you know. I mean, you go to catering, everyone's all at catering. You go, everyone has their sound checks and so on and so forth, meet and greets and those kind of things. So, yeah, you develop some good relationships through those kind of tours. And you know, Corn. We also did the Sick and Twisted tour with Corn, which was a heck of a lot of fun. And plus, we were big fans of Corn anyway too. So, a lot of fun, those guys. But that was a different time.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know which of those years, but I remember like Incubus was on a Family Values tour. I remember there was like Ice Cube at some point.
Yes. Yes.
Filter was on there. Like, it was such a crazy lineup.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Oh, Static X was on one of them for a little bit. Some bands would come in and off the tour too. So there was a few of those as well.
I think I remember hearing that for the 2001 tour, it's like you guys were, you know, one of the headliners. There's all these huge bands. It's like Korn wasn't needed as much anymore. And I heard that Korn would just come in on a few dates, or maybe as a secret band that people didn't know Korn would show up and they would play. Do you remember if that's true?
That is true. That is very true. Yeah, it was. I think we heard of it like a day before too in one of those situations, and yeah, we were pretty excited about that too. So, and they put on, you know, as always, a great show. They still do.
Yeah, I can't imagine going to see already an amazing lineup and then Korn is just like a special guest.
Yep.
It's funny. I've been a Korn fan since, you know, again, way back in the day. I came in probably around 1998 with Follow the Leader, you know, which was, I mean, they were already big, but that was like the big global breakthrough. And I was finally of age to get into it. So even though I've been a fan of Korn forever, I only saw them live for the first time maybe 5 years ago. And they were incredible, man. They're so good.
They still bring it all the time. You know, I don't know how they do it, but they do.
Yeah, they must have Red Bull in the rider or something that keeps them going every night.
Well, they're all clean, so that's good. But yeah, they're awesome. They're one of the best bands to see live for sure. Yeah.
So let's dive into your 5 favorite albums. So let's start by listing the 5 favorite albums so the listeners know what we're going to dive into, and then we'll go through them one by one. Do you want to list the 5? I have them in front of me if you want me to list them.
Well, I want this top 5 to come with a little bit of a disclaimer here. Now, these albums changed me as a listener, as a fan, and as a player. However, there's many others that have done the same thing too. So, you know, I had to choose 5 of those, and it's really tough to do. It would be tough for anyone to do. It'd be tough for, you know, especially someone like you who does this too for a living. You know, I mean, it's tough to pick 5. But anyway, let's give it a whirl.
Nice. You know, what's funny is every single guest, you're probably the 6th guest in this series of my 5 favorite albums. And every guest always has to do the disclaimer that they have like 20 favorite albums. And these 5 are just because you had to choose 5. But so we always have a honorable mention section where they list off the other 5, 10, 15 albums. So we will at the end, I will ask you what your honorable mentions are, because we want to shed light on all those great albums that you love. So we'll dive into those 5. And do you want to say them, or do you want me to say them?
Well, I chose Blizzard of Oz, which is Ozzy Osbourne. That was his first as a solo artist. With the great Randy Rhoads playing guitar on that. And actually the whole band was awesome. I chose Tool's Anima. They kind of changed that prog rock thing. The power of Maynard and Danny Carey's a drummer, just the whole band. I mean, I can sit here and pick one member, but they're all awesome. I did pick Korn's first record. But you know, they have plenty of great records as well. And then the big game changer, well, the one of the first game changers for me was Van Halen 1. So is that, did I say 4 or 5?
And then
Oh
we
no,
have Pantera.
yeah, and then Pantera was the other one. Yeah, another game changer.
And that's a Vulgar Display of Power is the Pantera
Yes,
album.
it is. That one's vulgar. Yep.
Awesome. So those are the 5. And you mentioned this a little bit, but how much did those 5 albums influence you as a drummer? Because all 5 of them have incredible drums and there's incredible drummers playing on them. So how much do you think these shaped you as a drummer? Because I remember reading up on Stained, and way back in the day when like Dysfunction comes out, the band itself kind of said that our influences are, you know, Tool or Korn or Pantera. So those are already in there back then.
Yeah, yes, they were. And as far as me as a drummer goes, like you were saying, all those drummers are fantastic. Some of my favorite drummers in the world. I just thought that their approach to what they were playing with, who they were playing with was it was different and creative and groundbreaking. And I the way that it related to me when I was, you know, coming up with my parts for Stained was as I wanted to stand out in that way too. I didn't want to stomp all over, you know, the guitar part, bass part, vocal, whatever. Didn't want to stomp over it, but I wanted to weave something in between those parts that was, you know, creative. So I'd be a fool to say that I didn't take some things here and there. I don't want to say steal because I would borrow them and make them my own, if that makes sense. So
yeah, actually, now that I look at the list of the 5 albums and I think to your playing in your discography, this actually sheds a lot of light on what I'm hearing from you as a drummer, because I've mentioned many times in our interview and with other drummers that I've interviewed, I reference you where I say, you know, you're one of the few drummers that has the ability to create hooks with your drums. And it's like looking at those 5 albums now, I can see where there's an influence from drummers that didn't just sit back and barely keep time. It's like they are right up front with the other instruments.
Sure. And, you know, there's always those guys that just lock in that backbone too and just keep it right there solid. Much respect for all that as well too. So it just all depends on, you know, the music that you're presented and what you have to work with, you know, and what the band wants out of their drummer too.
So let's dive into each of these 5 albums. I'm going to go in the order in which you provided them to me. So the first one, Van Halen's self-titled debut in 1978. Do you remember the first time you heard this album? Do you remember, was it one of the singles?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was actually Eruption. And I was like, a friend of mine played it for me. And I'm like, what is that? I thought it was like a keyboard. But at times it sounded like a guitar. And I was just like, this is incredible. It was like, is someone playing that? Or is it like a recording of something? I didn't even know what to make of it. You know what I mean? So, and I'm sure every guitar player who's an Eddie Van Halen fan probably thought the same thing as well, too.
Yeah, it's funny how influential that instrumental track is. It's one of the most famous instrumental tracks. It popularized that style of guitar, which is like, you know, 2-hand tapping. And in one of the prior interviews I did with I Mother Earth bass player Chuck Daly, he mentioned, he talked all about Van Halen, and he was saying at the end when I asked, you know, do you have any advice for your 10-year-old self? His response was, I would have told myself that it is possible to play Eruption. that he had a guitar teacher that said, no, like no one but him can play that. So he just kind of gave up, that some things aren't possible to play on guitar. And he said, I would tell him, and I would tell all my future students, that a human being played that, and you can also play that if you practice enough. That's how big of a difference that Eruption made for guitarists growing up.
And the thing is too with Eruption too is I've heard a lot of guys play it. And they play it really well. But there's something about the way Van Halen plays it that's just a little bit different. I mean, I know he created it, but yeah, there's just something about the way he does it, man. He does it. He's just amazing. He was amazing.
Yeah, and what's wild is that wasn't supposed to be on the album. That was just like a riff that he would play live sometimes. And rumor has it that the producer just heard him sitting there jamming it while they were in the studio, and he said that should be on the album. And when the final take that you hear, that as Eruption, was him, he just kind of played it and didn't know it was being recorded. And to this day, before he passed away, he would say, there's a mistake right off the top. Like, if I had known that we were recording it and it would be on the album, I would have done it different. Right. So that's what he's saying about what's considered like the greatest guitar solo of all time, the greatest instrumental thing of all time, is it was just in the moment, and there's mistakes. And
it's crazy how that happens and how that came to be. But Ted Templeman was the one who produced that record. And he deserves a lot of credit for putting that on the record, because that changed the whole game right there as far as guitar playing goes, rather.
Yeah, I've heard that between this debut album from Van Halen, his guitar playing on the album, the song Eruption, between that and then we have Ozzy Osbourne with Randy Rhoads, between those two albums and those two guitarists around the same time, that they were the ones that popularized that form of guitar playing with the tapping. And
they sure did. Yes. Yeah.
What a 1-2 punch, eh? Those two guys coming out, 78, between 78 and 80.
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
Yeah, so the album had 5 singles: You Really Got Me, Running with the Devil, Jamie's Crying, On Fire, and Ain't Talking About Love. This goes on to be a diamond selling album. So it sells close to 12 million albums globally. It makes Van Halen just one of 6 bands to have 2 diamond albums, because they had a later album that went diamond as well. 84. 84 had Jump? Is that
1984? Yeah, it had Jump, Panama, I think I had on there.
Hot for Teacher on that one?
Hot for Teacher. Yeah.
That's crazy. And I'm reading all the reviews over the years for that album, and it actually had negative reviews when it came out. And it's only later, some bands are ahead of their time, and it's only later that now it's considered one of the greatest debut rock albums of all time. But when it came out, the reviews weren't great, which is crazy.
Yeah, they said the same thing about many of those records like that. Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, which is still one of the greatest songs ever. They didn't like that either. But what do they know, right?
Yeah, so. Bohemian Rhapsody opened up so many doors for bands, because that song came out and it was so strange, and it was long, and different time signatures and different parts. And with that song being a massive hit, that opens the door to other bands with long, you have your long Tool songs that chart, and I'm trying to think of who else, but yeah, it opened the door for those like epic songs that you never thought radio would play.
I mean, it had like a pop essence to it. Obviously, they're in classical. It's operatic, and then it rocks. It's like it's got flavors of everything in there. It's amazing. However, I didn't put that on my list, but it's definitely one of my favorite. Queen is one of my favorites.
That would be an honorable mention. Which album? It's hard to beat the Greatest Hits album that has all their songs.
Well, yeah, it has them all on there. Probably Jazz or News of the World. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
They're all good, man.
That's an honorable
Oh,
mention.
Play the Game. Play the Game is really good too. Yeah.
A Night at the Opera. They had so many good albums.
I know. Night at the Opera. Yes, I know. See, it's you can't stop.
Yeah. One thing I didn't know, were you aware that Gene Simmons from Kiss had a lot to do with Van Halen? Did you know this? Because I did
Yeah.
not.
Well,
You
Van
knew
Halen
this?
opened. Yes. Yeah, I did. I knew that. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how, maybe you could probably tell me more, but I knew that Kiss used to open for, or I'm sorry, Van Halen used to open for Kiss.
So the connection is,
Yeah.
before Van Halen even had a record deal, Gene Simmons recorded a 3-song demo tape for them and shopped it everywhere, and nobody wanted it. And it was because Van Halen was so good live that there started to be a buzz live, and eventually they got signed. And so Gene Simmons is actually credited with discovering Van Halen, which I had no idea, which shows why they would take them on tour afterwards. But
Yeah, sure.
Gene Simmons, who obviously has an ego, but also a sense of humor.
Yeah.
He said, a lot of people stick me on their thank you list, even though I don't deserve it. One that I did deserve to be on was that on the first Van Halen record. The guy still owe me a couple $1,000, but I love him. So he had a very important role in early Van Halen, which is cool.
That sounds like exactly something you would say.
That's true. I wanted to talk about the sound of that album because when I had Chuck from My Mother Earth on, he just went on and on about Van Halen. And when Van Halen came out, it made everyone want to play guitar, and he made it fun. That he brought fun back instead of trying to look cool and all that stuff. It's like he made guitar playing fun, and people wanted to have fun. And so he talked about that debut album. So I went and listened to it back then, and what stood out to me was the actual recording of the album. If you have good headphones on, I love the way it sounds. It's so clean. So you have your drums that are panned left to right, so you can hear the drums everywhere.
Yeah.
You have the bass just in the middle, a bit lower. You have the rhythm guitar in the left ear. You have the vocals in the middle up front. And only when there's a guitar solo, that comes in the right ear where there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
And it's just such a simple, you just hear the musicians, the 4 musicians and their 4 instruments. They all have their own place.
Yeah.
There's a guitar solo. It has its own place as well. And it sounds so good because of how clean it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I was just having a conversation with someone too about panning. Me and my old sound man, we used to listen to the Korn record that way because you'd have Monkey in one ear and Head in the other ear.
The really high notes on each side.
Yeah, we'd be like, let's see what Monkey's playing right here. Oh, that's cool. Let's see what Head's playing. I didn't bring it together. Obviously, it's it sounds killer. But my biggest thing with Van Halen 1, as far as production goes, is they actually removed the bottom drum heads off of Alex Van Halen's drums. So he was just playing, just the top head and the drum, where a lot of the sound from a drum comes from that bottom head too. And for some reason, he got a pretty good sound off of it. I mean, it's raw for sure. Which me personally, I kind of miss these days a little bit, a lot of that raw sound or just emotion that kind of isn't there anymore, or it's there, but it's hard to capture, with all the passion.
Yeah. I find that the style of recording works so well with that album because each of those musicians are such great musicians that by each person, it's just very clean. Each person has their own place. So the entire album, I can hear just what he's doing if I'm listening to the guitar. And then I can hear just what the bass is playing the entire album. Like I can focus on whatever I want. It's all just very clean and separated. And what made a lot of sense is when I was reading up on it, it was mostly recorded live. Like they literally played the album and there's very little overdubs. So what you're hearing is just four guys with a
Yep.
mic on each of them, and that's the album, which I think is what makes it so special.
Yeah, Zeppelin did that. I mean, back in the day, man, that's what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So the single "You Really Got Me," so that's a cover of the Kinks, and that
Yeah.
was released as the first single, which you don't see often. A new band, their very
Yeah.
first single is a cover, because it's like you want to show your identity. This is who we are, and
Right.
there's a story behind that. So the band itself hated that that was their first single. They wanted Jamie's Crying as the first single to show this is our original music. This is who we are, and the reason why You Really Got Me was released as the first single is there was another band at the time called Angel, and they were friends with Van Halen. And rumor has it that both bands wanted to do a cover of You Really Got Me, and
Mm.
Angel was going to be releasing it, and Van Halen wanted to get it out before them, because whoever gets it out first, it's the second band can't then release it as a single. So
True.
even though they wish they released an original song first, they were basically forced if they wanted to use that single. So that came out first, and they say they regret it because it was a cover, but they got to it first, and now people associate it with them.
Yeah, I mean, well, it got people to pay attention to them too. I mean, just maybe because it was a cover or whatever, but it was certainly a rocking cover of it for sure.
Yeah, two of the songs that jump out to me because they have amazing groove are Ain't Talking About Love and Little Dreamer. Those two songs, when they come on, man, the groove is so good on those.
Oh, I know. I was gonna say Little Dreamer, yeah, for sure. Um On Fire too, that song just rips. Uh yeah, I mean, top to bottom, Atomic Punk. I mean, that was kind of different. It was yeah, that song, that the whole thing. I mean, the whole thing is awesome. There's not one bad thing on here, you know.
Yeah. David Lee Roth chooses this as his favorite Van Halen album. Obviously, he's not going to choose one of the albums with Sammy Hagar on it, but this is his favorite.
For some reason, they still can't get over each other.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a few reviews that I think you'll enjoy for the album, and then we'll dive into the next one. So Kerrang says it's difficult to overstate the effect Van Halen's debut had upon its release. With the music world split between punk, disco, and prog rock, Van Halen combined a dazzling live show with a party-hardy motto, and in Eddie Van Halen, a guitarist who redefined what was possible on six strings. His sound on this album, christened the Brown Sound, remains the holy grail of guitar tones. So that's what Kerrang said. And then All Music says, the still amazing thing about the album is how it sounds like it has no fathers. Like all great originals, the album doesn't seem to belong to the past, and it still sounds like little else despite generations of copycats. The album set the template for how rock and roll sounded for the next decade or more. So I thought you would enjoy those two.
Yeah, I do. And I agree with both of them. Yeah, game changer. That's the best, short-term version of it right there. No, I was just gonna say it was just one of those fun records. You know what I mean? You don't have to think too hard about it, but you enjoy the playing that's going on, and it's got such a great vibe, and once again, it was the four of them. I mean, it was a great combination of what was going on inside the band. I mean, the two brothers and Michael Anthony and David Lee Roth's character. Yeah.
So it ended up on a bunch of greatest, lists of greatest of all time. So Rolling Stone's 500 greatest of albums of all time, it's at 292. Guitar World readers ranked it number 7 on the list of greatest guitar albums of all time, and Rolling Stone had it at number 27 on the 100 best debut albums of all time. So lots of praise coming long after it was released.
Sure, and well deserved.
Well deserved. So let's dive into the next album. So this is Korn's self-titled debut album in 1990. You like the debut albums here. So back in 1994, what makes this album great?
Raw. I think the sound of the 7-string guitars, it just made it heavy. Jonathan Davis is just, it's just an open book on this. And how Ross Robinson was able to capture that and get that emotion out of him. It's, you feel it, man. You feel it in your heart and your soul. And music, for me, the music, it was so, you try to put your finger on, like, is this rock and roll? Yeah, of course it's rock and roll, but what else is involved here? Like, you hear flavors of hip hop in there. And just, once again, with the guitar playing, like, you haven't heard really guitar parts like that at the time. You know what I mean? And as far as the grooves go, I mean, they were, David was the drummer at the time. I thought he did a great job, and, you know, trying to, you know, be creative with what was there, and Fieldy's bass tone is just, Fieldy's bass tone. I mean, there's no one that really sounds like him. So just the whole thing together, man, those five guys, man, just were perfect. I mean, for the time too. And you got to remember, this was at the time where grunge was kind of being phased out a little bit too. And in came Korn, and it was really, really different from anything that we'd heard before. And actually, we were at band rehearsal when I first heard Korn, and Aaron played it for us, and it was Daddy.
The very last song on the album.
Yes, very last song on the album. And I was like either scared, or I was just like, wow, oh my God, just blown away at how he got, it was just so real. It's just so real, you know? And then obviously it got into the rest of the album after that, of course. And then Blind was a hit, obviously. And Chutes and Ladders, you know, but just the whole thing, I think, is a brilliant record.
Yeah, there's a famous footage of the recording of Daddy where Jonathan Davis is in a vocal booth, and he's like hiding in the corner, just like crying, and didn't know the mics were on. And they kept it, because it was so raw, they kept it in the song. And it's just all the abuse and all the things that he went through in his life all came out in that moment, and they captured it on record. And for him to be okay with that being released just shows how vulnerable he was, you know.
You know, and he says they won't play that song live, and I totally get why. Because I mean, then it kind of just becomes something else. I think when you start playing it live, I think what they captured in the studio, that's the only way it should be captured. A song like that, as powerful of a song like that.
Yeah, it'd be hard to recreate that emotion.
Yeah, I think it would. Yes, definitely.
So the album had 4 singles. You mentioned 2 of them already, Blind and Chutes and Ladders. There was also Need To and Clown. So this is the debut studio album. It goes on to sell 10 million copies, which is crazy, because there's nothing that sounded like that at the time. It wasn't radio friendly. It was heavy and different. And it was like a grassroots thing that just kept growing until it sold 10 million globally, and it set the tone for Life is Peachy. And then the big, massive mainstream breakthrough of what was the third album? I already mentioned Follow the Leader. I own that album. I remember buying that. You know what's funny is Follow the Leader. I remember the day I bought that album, I brought it over to my friend Ben's house. I put it in the CD player, and it song 1 would start, and there'd be nothing. It would go for 3 seconds, and then song 2 would start, and then song 3. And I'm going, my CD's broken, and I couldn't figure it out. And eventually it's sequenced, so there was just nothing for like 13 songs, and then
Yeah.
the album starts, like track 1 is actually starting on number 14 and goes from there. And then I think they stopped doing that with later pressings, but I was going to return it. I was like, this thing's broken.
Well, I think probably a lot of people did return it, and I think that's why they did that. In fact, that was at the time of like the hidden track thing and so on. So we did the same thing too.
Yeah. Was it Excess Baggage you guys had as a
Yeah,
hidden track?
Yeah, that was a hidden track. You got to wait like 15 minutes for the song to start. I mean, you know,
but even Daddy itself, I think there's a hidden track where there's nothing for like that. Daddy is like 17 minutes long, and I think there's like a bunch of silence until there's something at the end. So
yeah, at the end it almost sounds like the song is over, and then it kind of picks, and then Jonathan kind of starts in again a little bit more. Actually, I have a story about one of the songs on this. It's Need To, which was the third track on there. So we're on tour with Korn, and this was on the Sick and Twisted tour. And this is when they came out. They had a big, huge stage. It was the PA system. I guess it's in the Guinness Book of World Records for being the biggest or loudest or something like that. Either way, and they used to take a break in the middle of their show, which the break didn't really seem to work all that well at first, just because it was just kind of like, all right, you get this energy, and then it's like, and then they got to come back out and do it again, where Jonathan would come up and they played the bagpipe part for Chutes and Ladders. Well, Fieldy came into our dressing room one day. He's like, "You guys used to play some Korn songs, right?" We're like, "Yeah." So he asked us if we would. We told him, which ones that they weren't playing currently on that tour. So we were like, we know Need To. So we ended up playing Need To. Actually, during the break, it was pretty awesome. Yeah, it was.
Wait, so it was Korn's set. They took a break. Stain got up and played one Korn song, and then Korn went back up.
Yep. Right after we were done playing Need To, Jonathan came out from underneath the stage and
with the bagpipes.
Yeah, with bagpipes. Yeah.
That is crazy. Sure. I wonder if this is on YouTube somewhere, because that would be awesome.
you can find it. Actually, I looked it up a couple of years ago, and it was on there. It's a crappy recording, but
well, as a fan, I got to check that out.
Yeah.
I have been a fan of this album for a very long time, but going back to it, listening to it a bunch of times, it's preparing for this. What stands out to me is a few different things. So one of them is the slap bass. I had never heard anything like that before, where it's almost like the bass is a percussion instrument where you almost can't hear the individual notes. It's more of the like you're
clicking almost.
Yeah, it's almost like you're just hearing rhythmic clicking that is in time with everything else.
Yes.
And you can't hear the individual notes of the bass. I had never heard anything like that before when I was growing up. I had never seen it. He always had his bass so low and almost straight up, and he was just hitting. And I remember all of us learning to play our guitars and basses would try it, and we just couldn't get anything to sound good.
Yeah. I mean, his style is really like no one else, really. But yeah, I remember how his amps were set. I mean, it was all lows and highs. So that was his sound, and it was a big sound. It was a big part of Korn's sound.
Yeah, the other things that stood out were the high piercing guitar notes that you mentioned are panned left and right, and you can hear each guitarist doing something different sounds, and they complement each other. The bagpipes stood out. I mean, who else in heavy music was playing bagpipes at that point?
No one I know of. I mean, if there might have been someone, but either way, that at that time, I didn't know of anyone.
And the other thing that was unique was Jonathan Davis, the the way they describe it is nonsense, utterance, gibberish, vocal techniques. So where he's singing but not saying anything
Yeah.
specific, the rum, 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 those
Yeah.
things. I
Yeah.
had never heard that before as well. So you take the bass, the high notes, the bagpipes, the that kind of gibberish singing,
Yep.
and you have kind of this recipe that you've never seen before.
That's a good way to put it. Recipe. That's what it is. And that was theirs. And it worked. And it's still working. And it's very innovative too. It's what they did and how they approached what they were doing. They weren't really thinking about anything else. They were just thinking about what they wanted. And that's what made them so unique, and thank God for Korn. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it's you mentioned before their producer Ross Robinson. So he had worked on their demo, their 1993 demo. It was called Niederman's Mind, and between that demo and then this debut album and its success, he goes on to work with Slipknot and Limp Bizkit. So because of that, Ross Robinson and Jonathan Davis are considered the godfathers of nu metal, because this Korn album we're talking about is considered the very first. This is the start of nu metal and everything that came after it. So this is like a groundbreaking album, just like Nevermind from Nirvana ushered in the change that became grunge for years. It's like this ushered in nu metal that would continue for a long time as well.
Yep, definitely. I just read something not that long ago, and I never looked at it that way, but it's true. Korn was the founders of the nu metal. So I put Korn and Deftones in there too, maybe. As godfathers.
Yeah, I guess Deftones with Adrenaline. That was a very early album as well. So that's what, 95
ish, something like that. Yeah,
I remember buying Around the Fur, which was later. I don't know if that was 90.
Yes. It was after. That was their next one.
Yeah.
That's actually how we chose our producer, the Terry Date, who produced our first one, Dysfunction. That's how we picked him. We all had Terry Date as number one to do Dysfunction off of Around the Fur, off of just the sound and the vibe that he captured with those guys. And
But do you know what other album Terry Date produced that was earlier than Deftones, Around the Fur? He produced
Soundgarden,
Vulgar Display of Power, which is on your list.
Oh yeah, that's on. Yeah,
so that ties it all together here. So you got one of your favorite albums. This guy produced it, and then he goes on. It's so cool that
Terry did 3 of them now. He did Cowboys, he did Vulgar, and he did Far Beyond Driven.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So how amazing is it that these are your favorite albums of all time, and then your band goes on to work with him?
Yeah, I know.
Living the dream, John. I mean, who gets to work with their favorite producer,
Yeah, I know. We were really lucky. And David Bottrell was another one too. And I know you've interviewed David as well. But those guys, Terry, we've always loved Terry's stuff. So, and we're huge Pantera fans as well. Who isn't a Pantera fan? If you like rock metal music, you can't not like Pantera.
Yeah, and we're gonna dive deep into that album in a few minutes. I loved the artwork for this Korn album. So it just paints this picture. So the cover, it's a girl on a swing in a playground, and just there's so many things going on. So it's this innocent girl on a playground, and then there's the shadow of a man, and it looks like he has some kind of a weapon in the shadow. So it's like there's a girl, so innocence there. Then there's this I don't know, perpetrator. There's this like bad man. At least you see his shadow,
right?
And you have the Korn logo, and the shadow of the girl lines up with the K in the Korn logo that it looks like she's being hanged, if you're paying attention.
Oh, wow.
So
Check it
so
out.
it's almost like you're not
Yeah.
sure if this man is good or bad, and there's this innocent girl, and then just the shadow of the sun and the logo looks like this is maybe what's going to happen. It's not going to be good. And then the back of the album is just the empty playground, like the aftermath, that there's nothing
Right.
left there. And
Yeah.
so between that imagery, and then you have Korn, which is spelt incorrectly, and there's a backwards R, and it's like, that's like children's writing. So it's Jonathan Davis writing with his other hand for it to be like that. Just between all of that, and then songs like Shoots and Ladders, which is like kids games, the song Daddy, which is about what he went through as a child. All of that just paints this one image that works with the songs and the lyrics and the sound of the band. I just felt they did a great job in presenting like a complete package.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, everything about it. It makes you think. You know what I mean? It was brilliant. It was brilliant.
So I have all these notes from different songs, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but the song Blind that opens, man, do you remember seeing that at Woodstock 99? It's like famous how crazy the crowd went when Korn went on, because they started with Blind, and you just see this ocean of hundreds of thousands of people. That's like one of the greatest, captured live moments ever.
Yeah, I remember seeing Korn. The first time I saw Korn was in a club, and they did the same thing. They started with Blind, and it was just crazy. I don't know. Power.
Yeah. And the Are You Ready that like eggs the crowd on is amazing. Yeah. There's two songs that the guitar riffs always got me fired up when I was listening to this. So Ball Tongue and Predictable. The guitar riffs are so badass. And I wanted to ask you, as a drummer, how good are the drums on Ball Tongue? I mean, just right off the bat, it's like drum heavy.
Yes, it is. Oh, I love it with the toms right in front. Down. Yeah, it was. That Ball Tongue's actually one of my favorites off of that one. Clown, they're all great. It's just, I do. There's a few that I know what you're talking about. They have it's pretty drum heavy. And then there's some groove type stuff that, like Helmet in the Bush, which I can only imagine what that song's about.
I just read up on that, so yeah, it's I'd have to censor that what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, use your imagination out there.
Yeah. There's so we talked about Shoots and Ladders a little bit. Yep. So that was actually Korn's first Grammy nomination. So best metal performance. So they've been nominated, or have probably won quite a bit since then, but that's history for Korn. Very first nomination, Shoots and Ladders.
Yeah, good for them. They should win. I'm glad I think Slipknot won this year, but I don't know if you heard the new Slipknot record. I didn't mention Slipknot, but it's great. It's really good.
Yeah, they've been on a roll the last few. So there was one in was it 2019? They put out one that was very different, and it was their most acclaimed album yet, which is crazy. And then their last two have been just very, very different, and critics are just loving them.
Yeah, I dig every song off of that. The End so far, which is their newest one.
Yeah. So there's, just like with the Van Halen album, where David Lee Roth said that debut album was his favorite. So Davis says this is his favorite Korn album, so the debut album. And then just like the Van Halen album was recorded mostly live, them all playing together, that was the same thing with this album. The band mostly just played it all together live.
Awesome. Yeah, they did.
All right. So I have let's see. I'll do a couple reviews, and then we'll move on to the Pantera album. So Sputnik Music says Davis is able to paint a very disturbing visual image in the head of the listeners, especially on the song Daddy. They also thought that Davis's voice was what made Korn unique, and that it made every song on the album interesting. They praised each of the members' skill on the respective instrument and summed it up as a bass-heavy, angst-ridden vessel of catharsis. So I thought that was cool. Then Metal Hammer considers the album to be Korn's best, writing that this is a record that remains as integral to modern metal as the first Black Sabbath album or Metallica's Master of Puppets. So that's some high praise.
Oh, yeah, definitely is. Right on point there.
We have Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power. This is from 1992. Why does this album mean so much to you?
Vulgar Display. Well, first of all, my first introduction to Pantera was Cowboys from Hell. It sounds all the songs are great on Cowboys from Hell. It just kind of sounds like it's more so kind of pieced together, I think, where Vulgar Display to me is just like you have to listen to the whole record. I mean, you really do. I mean, you're going to want to anyway when you first put it on, but it kind of takes you on a journey. You know what I mean? Not that Cowboys doesn't, it's just, I don't know. And then sonically as well too. It's just a great sounding record, and just heavy, and it has some songs that did well. I mean, you know, at least at active rock radio stations, it did well. And yeah, I mean, it's heavy. It's
so heavy. It's such an aggressive, like, pulverizing listen. You know, I'm listening on the headphones. I'm going for a walk. And it is just like, it is so intense in all the right ways.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it definitely it makes your blood pressure go up, which is good.
Yeah. So what's funny is Metallica the year before, in 1991, puts out the Black Album, which still to this day, 30 years later, is the single best-selling album in the US since 1991. No album, not Adele, not Drake, has sold more. An album has sold more than the Black Album in the US. Like, it's crazy. But anyways, that album comes out in 1991. And, you know, Metallica, the songs were shorter. It was a more polished recording. There's harmonies, there's some acoustic stuff. And it's considered this big mainstream breakthrough. And what's funny is Pantera saw that and said, this is our chance, that we have a responsibility to make the heaviest album of all time in response to Metallica moving in a different direction. They saw this opening and they went for it. So they literally wanted to make the heaviest album of all time. And I love that, you know, the title Vulgar Display of Power is like the perfect description of what this album is.
Totally. Yeah.
I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. You know, I think Metallica opened the door for a lot of metal bands. You know, I mean, that goes without saying, really. But Pantera to me was a little bit more my thing, with all due respect to Metallica, of course. But yeah, that album is just, like you said, it's just brutal, you know.
Yeah,
love it.
Yeah, you know, there's 4 singles. Is it Mouth for War?
Mouth for War.
Mouth for War, This Love, Hollow, and Walk. It comes out. Critics love it. Fans love it. It's still their best-selling album. 2.5 million copies sold. And we're talking about the album title. It's funny. It's from the movie The Exorcist. So the priest says, if you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear? And the girl says, that's much too vulgar a display of power. And that's actually where the title comes from, is The Exorcist.
I never knew that. No kidding, really. And I've seen that movie a million times.
Yeah. And I love the album cover because the band, it's a person getting punched in the face, and it looks like it hurts.
Right. Knowing how those guys roll, I'll guarantee you somebody who they probably did that over and over again. The poor guy.
Yeah. So the band told their label they wanted something vulgar, like a dude getting punched in the face. So the first version of that cover was someone getting punched with a boxing glove on, and they said it wasn't vulgar enough. So then they did it again without a boxing glove on. And apparently no one actually got punched, which is hard to believe considering you figure one of those guys would be like, yeah, just give me a good one and take a picture, you know?
Oh, not even them. Their crew guys were just as crazy too. So,
Yeah. And to tie the Korn album together with this one, Jonathan Davis has said in Loudwire, he said that Dimebag was one of the greatest guitar players ever. I mean, if there's no Dimebag Daryl, there would be no Korn. So to show the lineage of all your albums working together here.
yes, well, good. I'm glad I chose at least the three that we've done so far. But yeah, Dime for sure. I mean, again, as far as he was just so different and so good, so creative. And I just loved how he and Vinny, being brothers and everything. I mean, they played together for a long time, but it shows and you can tell. I mean, even just when you saw them live too, is the same thing. They were just so tight, and they were just on the same page with everything they did, and then you had Phil in there, of course. I mean, he's Phil, man. He's just that heavy metal singer, yeah, but that band, for me at least, is if there was, it would be a little different, I think, if there was no Vinny and Dime.
Yeah, you mentioned that you actually knew the brothers. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to become pretty tight with those guys. Yeah.
It's such a tragic story.
Brilliant.
Just such a bright light that's, taken too soon. It's crazy.
Yeah. I know.
Man, I'm listening to the album, and I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of heavy music. I hear lots of guitar solos. Every solo on that album is unlike anything I've ever heard before. Just so unique, not just the playing, but the sound itself. Nothing sounds like that even today with like all the copycats since then. So I was blown away by the guitar solos and the guitar riffs.
Yeah, same here. Being a drummer, you do pay attention to a lot of those things too, because you listen to a lot of what the guitar player is playing when you're trying to, build your parts for a song or whatever the case might be. But he was so good. Dime he was one of a kind. Not only as a person, but just as a player as well.
Yeah, the album has the song "Walk," which is one of their most popular songs to this day, and it's their most played song on Spotify still and on YouTube. Is there anything you can say about that song? What you love about it, or when you first heard it?
Walk, well, first of all, it's just such a powerful song. Even if you don't know who Pantera is, you've heard that song. You know what I mean? Whether it's at a sporting event or whatever the case might be, but it's just one of those songs. It's just heavy, and you can't help but not love it. I mean, it's just great,
Yeah, apparently they were out on tour. Yeah, they were having all this success with prior albums to this one, and they were on tour. And when they came back, people were saying they were sellouts or they've changed. And that song was the response that they had, was basically, if you think we're sellouts, you can take a fucking walk. And that's the basis for that song. And I think that's why there's such energy and like anger in that song.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, and even their follow-up too, which didn't get as much love as Vulgar, Far Beyond Driven. I mean, that's just so heavy too. And same thing, great riffs, great playing all around. I mean, just good songs. They're one of the ultimate metal bands, for sure.
Yeah, both Rolling Stone and Guitar World has Walk on their list of either greatest metal songs of all time or greatest guitar solos of all time. And
Yeah.
a few of the reviews that I enjoyed. So All Music describes it as one of the most influential heavy metal albums of the 90s. Entertainment Weekly said it was one of the most satisfying heavy metal records since Metallica's early 80s cult days.
Mm.
About.com ranked the album #1 in its list of best heavy metal albums of 1992, saying the Pantera was head and shoulders above the rest of the field. And then it's on the list of best metal albums of the 90s. And top 11 metal albums of the 90s from Loudwire. IGN named it the 11th most influential heavy metal album of all time. And then Rolling Stone has it 10th on their list of 100 greatest metal albums of all time. So it's right there at the top of the best that the metal genre has ever produced.
Yeah, those numbers too are just based off of, probably a couple different factors involved. So, trust me, if you haven't heard Vulgar Display and you're a metal fan, you need to listen to it.
So let's dive into Tool's album Anima. This comes out in 1996, and I'm excited to talk about this one because this is in my list of favorite albums of all time. So I know this one inside and out. I love this one. I actually love almost all their albums, so I could talk about any of them. And,
Yes.
and you talked about David Bottrell being one of your favorite producers. He ended up producing Stain's Chapter 5 album, and he produced and mixed this album. So again, you get to work with all your favorite producers from the albums that you listened to when you were coming up. What makes Tool's Anima album, what makes it so great? Why is this on your list? Because they have a few albums that could be up there as all-time greats.
Sure. The uniqueness of it. Sonically, of course, it's amazing. The way the parts are structured in the song, and the way they build their parts into these sections which I like to call the Tool machine, because that's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like almost like a machine. But it's really all them playing. It's just them playing in like that 6/4 time or whatever they choose to use for whatever song or section. It's so good. I mean, Danny also used a lot of electronic drums on it too, which are used in a way that not like you wouldn't really think of people using it and using them in that way. And I know he created a lot of those sounds himself too. So his usage of that is incredible. And then his playing on top of it is amazing. The guitar playing is fantastic. I mean, everyone in that band, the way they kind of just, I mean, it's really technically it's a 3-piece band with a singer, and the way they compose their sections is brilliant. It really is. It's
usually music first. My understanding is the three members come up with all the music, and music is basically done, and then it gets provided to Maynard, who finds some brilliant way of weaving in vocals.
Yeah, I could see it being that way. Just because the parts are so well thought out, a lot of singers they would rather hear something that is already kind of there for them to feed off of, so to speak.
Yeah, you're talking about the different time signatures. And I remember thinking, so my background is in audio engineering. And I remember when I listened to Tool with all the different changes in time signatures and tempo changes, I remember thinking, man, programming the click track would be a nightmare in the studio, figuring out all that stuff. And when I talked to David Bottrell, he's like, they don't use a click. Like Danny Carey is a human metronome.
Yeah.
And it's hard enough to just not use a click for an easy song, but then to have a 10-minute or 17-minute song that has all these time signatures and tempo changes, and there's no click and everyone's in time. It makes no sense.
Well, they do actually work on these records for like about 3 or 4 years. As you know, if you're a Tool fan, you know they don't come out with a new record every couple of years. They,
Some of these, some of them, it's like 11 years later, 13
yeah,
years later.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So I mean, they put a lot of time into that stuff, and I'm sure certain sections I may, in a rehearsal form, they might use a click just to kind of, get those parts solid into like the next part, and who knows? I don't know, but yeah, that's when I first heard that too, I was blown away. But then again, you're right. Programming a click for that would be a nightmare.
That would not be fun. So the,
No.
the album has 4 singles: Stinkfist, H, Anima, 46 and 2. This is the band's second studio album after Undertow, and sells 3.2 million copies. So this is a massive album.
It's
and
actually third. They had Opiate too.
Opiate. So yeah, they had the EP to start
Yeah.
with. So
Yeah,
I guess they would say this is the, I guess, second full length is maybe the best way to.
You're correct in saying that. Yes.
Well, we got to make sure it is totally correct. So yeah, the second full length, it's their third release. And man, is Danny Carey like the best drummer on the planet? Like, this guy is so good. It's unbelievable.
Right now, yeah, for sure.
He's holding the torch.
Yeah. I think he has actually for a while, but yeah, it's just he's brilliant. He's got to be really a smart guy. I mean, and you watch him play, and he's so focused, and just the way he approaches the drums is just, I'm curious to know. That's who you should interview him. How he approaches things, how he would approach a section, or you know what I mean? That would be real interesting to know that, or to see him do it.
Yeah, it's one thing to be that good playing, but it's also the creativity of what he's creating, right? So it's one thing, like, to be a great drummer that can go and play Neil Peart stuff. That's one thing, but it's to actually be the one like Neil Peart coming up with Neil Peart stuff, or the Danny Carey coming up with that stuff, is just a whole other level.
And Danny Carey would probably tell you Neil Peart and guys like that were his inspirations for what he does. But yeah, as far as for a while, I think he's been probably the best drummer, rock and roll drummer.
Did you see, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Did you see, so the Foo Fighters just announced that Josh Freese will be their drummer, at least live. They haven't, I don't know that they've said he's their drummer moving forward full time, but did you see the reveal at all? It was really funny
when they were like in a circle. And okay, so my guitar player just sent that to me today, so I wasn't able to watch it, but we were talking about it. But I can't stop that. The first single, I love it. I can't stop listening to it. I mean, it's great. And I know Dave's playing drums on it too. It sounds like Dave, and yeah, it's good stuff. Great. I mean, I'm a big Foo Fighters fan. So
yeah. So I think the new Foo Fighters album comes out next week, if I'm not mistaken. And so they did a reveal online that Josh Freese was going to be their new drummer, and it was so well done. So it's funny. So you see all the band members except the drummer, you see them at a jam and they're talking, and it says, the big reveal of their new drummer. So everyone's expecting to see who it is. And then suddenly there's a knock at the studio door, and the door opens, and it's Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, and he's holding drumsticks. And you're like, holy shit, Chad Smith is going to play for Foo Fighters. And he just says like, someone's car is blocking me in the parking lot. If someone can move it. Oh, no problem. Thanks, Chad. And he leaves. And you're like, oh, what? And then after that, the door knocks again, and Danny Carey from Tool comes in with his drumsticks. You're like, holy shit, Danny Carey's playing for the Foo Fighters. That's why I'm bringing it up. And he's like, he's like, oh guys, I got the food that we ordered, it's ready. And they're like, yeah, we'll see you, we'll come out in a second. And you're like, oh, it's not Danny Carey. And then Tommy Lee from Motley Crue comes in with his sticks and says
Yeah.
something, and then eventually the camera pans and Josh Freese is there, and he's like, are we going to start practicing or what? And then they kick into it, and that was the reveal. So there was some
That's,
tool involvement, which is why I'm bringing it up.
yeah, sure. Yeah. The only one of those drummers that would probably be close to what Taylor, like stylistically, I'm speaking, would be Chad. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but Josh Freese is a good call. I actually heard Matt Cameron was going to do it at first.
From Pearl Jam and Soundgarden?
Yeah, yeah. And sorry, this is off the Tool topic for a moment.
Oh, it's all good.
But I was like, great drummer. I just don't see him with Foo Fighters. You know what I mean? It was one of those things. But that's pretty much it. But I know Josh is going to kill it.
Yeah, I've been hearing from the start that Josh Freese was most likely going to be the guy for the job, and he is, and it looks like everyone is happy with that decision. Like Josh just has, the Perfect Circle stuff and the Nine Inch Nails stuff, and he's on all these albums. You had no idea it was him playing.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah. So he does have tons of experience as far as, and he can adapt really well to it seems. So, yeah, I think he's going to be great. I think it's a good fit. So
we'll dive back into the Tool album. So this got nominated for 2 Grammys, so Best Metal Performance, and then the album, they always have amazing album artwork. It was nominated because of the album artwork. So they won for the track Anima. So that was the first Grammy that they won. That got Bottrell one of his 3 Grammys as well, which is awesome. And
well deserved.
What's that? Well deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah. He not only produced it, but he also mixed it. So that's it's 2 different things, and both of them, you produce to get the right songs and the right takes and all that, and then to mix it for it to sound incredible is 2 different things. So it's
yes, correct. Yeah, well, he deserves it for sure.
Absolutely. The first song, so Stinkfist, what's funny is that's the first single, and because Stinkfist, the title is, it's a little offensive, that that was a top 20 song on the alternative rock charts on Billboard, and they would not put Stinkfist. They would put track number 1. So as a hit single, it was just known as track number 1, which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah. And you don't. Tool is like Zeppelin. It's like with their song titles. It's like you're like, yeah, I don't. They'll never say it in the song sometimes. So it's like, they just come up with these oddball names at times. So not every song on this one, or on this particular record, but man, there's
46 and 2. I find that shows up on the list of greatest drum performances of all time. Do you have any thoughts as a drummer on 46 and 2?
Yeah, I know, and where he places it too in the middle of the song.
It sounds like he's on a different. Yeah, so later on in the song, or halfway through towards the end, it's like he comes in and it's like he is on his own thing and the rest of the band is on something else, and eventually it lines up again.
It does. And well, they build into that bridge section right there on 46 and 2, right? That within the drum solo. So like, just if you listen to that drum solo and how he builds in going into that bridge section, next section right there, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty brilliant, really.
Do you have any thoughts on the Tool is known for having the instrumental segue tracks. So there's 6 segue tracks on that album. Do you have any thoughts on those? So I've heard different reasons for why they have them. Any thoughts when you hear them on the album, why they're there, or if they do anything for you? Or
they don't really do much for me. I want to hear the song, get down to some playing here. So No, I don't really know too much about those things. A lot of times I would just skip right over them just to get to the next song.
Yeah, I've heard a few of the reasons are um, one as like a palate cleanser to kind of, you know, the songs are so different that you need a palate cleanser in between, or the songs are in like different keys and they don't flow well one into the next, so they add this that's kind of has its segue better between two songs. I've heard it's to evoke a certain emotion or feeling. So it's like it's not really music, but it's the certain sounds put you in a certain space, which maybe prepares you for the next song. I've heard all these different things, and you never know
Yeah,
what's true.
yeah. You know, the one with the record, like it sounds like it's going backwards. Um, that one right there also can kind of grate on your nerves after a while too. So maybe that has a meaning behind it, where it's trying to build tension for, you know what I mean. So I understand what they're doing. It's I just personally, it's not really my thing. That's all. But I get what they're doing. I mean, they think way outside the box for sure.
Yeah, I have a confession. So I use Spotify all the time, and I have all these playlists. And for Anima, for Lateralis, and for um, Fear Inoculum, those three albums, I actually made playlists where it's those three albums minus all the instrumental tracks. So instead of having Anima with, I don't know, 14 tracks or 16, it's just
Yeah.
the like 9 or 10 songs on it. So I've actually, you know, to get, like you said, you know, give me the goods, get right to the songs. I've actually made playlists like that to skip, because they're an out. The albums are pushing the full CD. You can have 80 minutes, and all their albums are like 79 minutes and 20 seconds. So
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say, if you notice, like after a hooker with a penis, there is three of them in a row
hmm.
that are kind of like that. I mean, they're all different, but yeah, they decided to do that.
Yeah.
Only
Well,
Tool would do
in your
that.
opinion, the songs are so good, you just want to get to the songs, which is
Yeah, they are, you know. So yeah.
cool. So I have a few lists that the album shows up on for the greatest of all time, and then we'll dive into your final album here as we wrap up. So Animo is ranked the sixth most influential album of all time by Kerrang. Rolling Stone had it at number 18 on the greatest metal albums of all time, number 14 on Guitar World's readers poll to find the best 100 guitar albums. It's been voted the third greatest drumming album in history by Rhythm Magazine. Entertainment Weekly had it. They said one of 1996 strangest and strongest alt metal records. And the last one is USA Today wrote that Tool moves to the front of the alternative metal shop on its third and best release. So that's what I've got for Tool on them.
All right there. They're dead on.
Dead on. And we come to our final album, Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz, comes out in 1980. This is the only album on the list that I had not heard. So I knew the singles, Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley, Mr. Brownstone. That's Guns N' Roses, I think. Mr. Crowley. So I knew the two singles, but I had not heard the rest of the album. So I want to thank you. This is the whole point of the series is getting introduced to great albums. I love this album, and my favorite song was actually "Goodbye to Romance," which is one of the singles. So what can you tell us about Blizzard of Oz?
Well, I was young when it came out, so you know, and at the time I was listening to like, you know, Sabbath and Priest and Maiden and stuff like that, as far as, you know, rock and roll goes, metal. But when I heard this, I was blown away at a number of things. Number one, how catchy these rock and roll songs were, and the guitar playing, and actually, you know, all the playing, but Randy Rhoads being the guitar player on this. I mean, you know, we sat here, we talked about Van Halen and Dimebag and all that, but I mean, there was also Randy Rhoads, and he wasn't around long enough to really make a huge mark on a lot of people, but the short period of time that he was around, he did make that mark on people, especially guitar players. So, and I just think the songs are all great. They're all well written. You know, so you said that Crazy, what were the songs on it? So it was
Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley were the two singles.
Okay, there wasn't any other ones on there. I don't
those
know.
those were the two singles. And what's crazy is everyone knows Crazy Train. Like that's one of the biggest, you know, metal or hard rock songs of all time. And apparently when it came out, it wasn't a huge single. Like it's over the years that's grown. So the album was big. This is such an important album because the year before Black Sabbath kicks Ozzy to the curb, they kick him out of the band, and he thinks his career is over. And my favorite song, Goodbye to Romance, is actually in response to Black Sabbath. It's Goodbye to Romance. It's actually goodbye to the band that he's no longer in. He thought this was it for him. And this album, you know, because of Randy Rhoads and you know, Crazy Train, this album sells 5.2 million copies. So it's a huge hit. And what's wild is, you know, Black Sabbath sold 75 million albums. And then this album is the start of Ozzy going on to sell 70 million albums. So without this album, you're missing out on this massive, massive career. So it's so important.
Yeah. And I think Ozzy got to do things his way and the way he wanted to write music at the time, and this character that he wanted to portray, and, you know, the Prince of Darkness thing, and, you know, all that. And this was kind of the beginning of that, really. Well, I mean, you could say Sabbath was the beginning of that, but this was him on his own, with his own. He didn't have to bounce anything off of Tony Iommi at the time, Bill Ward, you know, so on and so forth. You know, and he founded a great guitar player in Randy Rhoads, and they just went to town and wrote these songs, and it's pretty amazing. And, you know, when I saw Ozzy back in the day, Randy Rhoads had just died. So Brad Gillis was the guitar player who was the guitar player in Night Ranger. Tommy Aldrich, who's been with it, he's played with every 80s metal band. He was a drummer. And Rudy Sarzo, same thing. He's, you know, those two guys both played with so many different acts. But those aren't the guys who recorded the record. Lee Kerslake was actually the drummer, and Bob Daisley was bass player. And those are the guys who actually recorded the tracks on Blizzard of Oz. What Sharon has done with that since, I don't know. But I mean, they're still the same parts. So, yeah, just another one of those classic records that really changed my my view on so many things.
Yeah, you're talking about Randy Rhoads, and it's what's crazy is when he died, he was only 25. So the recording of these two albums, he's like early 20s. And I have a couple of things. So I didn't know this, but Randy Rhoads at 16 started the metal band Quiet Riot. Did you know that?
Yes.
I didn't know that. So Quiet Riot goes on to be this massive metal band, and he started that at 16, and he was on the first few albums, and they only had Japanese releases. And I guess he was fed up that they weren't having any success outside of Japan. So he hears about this audition for Ozzy Osbourne, and he goes, and Quiet Riot blew up after he wasn't in the band anymore. But apparently the audition for Ozzy Osbourne, Randy Rhoads just shows up with his guitar and his amp, and he's just playing. He's not even in the audition. And Ozzy walks by, and I have a quote. Ozzy says, he played this fucking solo, and I'm like, am I fucking stoned, or am I hallucinating, or what the fuck is this? Like, he had never heard guitar playing like that. And Ozzy says that he just said, you're in. Like, there was no actual audition. He was that good in the hallway.
Yeah, I heard a story similar to that. Yeah. But you have it in quotes, so I mean that's probably exactly what happened. And you know, that's that's how good he was. You know,
Uh,
I feel
I
bad for the other guys who were trying out.
Yeah, they didn't even get to try out because
They didn't even
he already heard what he wanted to hear. I guess the last thing I would say before we wrap up is that, I mean, you never know what is true or not true, but the lore is that the band itself that recorded with Randy Rhoads and the other guys, apparently they were supposed to be a band called the Blizzard of Oz. And they were recording thinking they were a band. And it was only when the album comes out that they saw that Ozzy Osbourne was bigger than Blizzard of Oz. And then they found out that, oh, it's actually Ozzy Osbourne and he's a solo guy and the album's called Blizzard of Oz. They thought that we are a band called Blizzard of Oz. And apparently that pissed off a lot of guys, which is why band members ended up leaving and jumping ship. But
Right.
it was supposed to be a band called the Blizzard of Oz.
Oh, no kidding. All right. Well, I don't think I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
Well, makes sense.
Yeah, well, I guess they made the right decision because Ozzy's gone on to have a tremendous career and a lot of success. So, to be respectful of your time, as we wrap up, any honorable mentions? So you've mentioned a couple albums as we go that you would also have on the list. Any you want to rapid fire through?
Sure, I'll rapid fire through these right here, and there's more once again. But Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. I got Black Sabbath, Paranoid. Speaking of Ozzy. Alice in Chains is Dirt. Pantera, Far Beyond Driven. We kind of brushed on that a little bit. AC/DC, Back in Black. Metallica, Black Album. Aerosmith, Toys in the Attic. Stone Temple Pilots. Pretty much all of them.
Core, or Purple, or any of them?
Yeah, it's just they're just great songwriters. Those guys. I put a Police record. I put the Police down because Stuart Copeland was a huge inspiration for me. So you could pretty much pick any one of theirs as well. Rush, Moving Pictures. The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Love it. Here's Queen, Jazz, News the World. Another band you could pick anyone. Soundgarden, Super Unknown. And Pantera, Cowboys from Hell. But there is many others. I mean, you could take Iron Maiden, Power Slave, or Number of the Beast. You know, there's so many great ones.
Yeah, I can vouch for almost every album on that list. Those are all, that's such a good, man, that's such a good list of albums. I'll have to build a new playlist with those albums as well. So I have one final question for you. We have a tradition on the podcast where the guests will leave a question for the next guest without knowing who it is. So it could be something funny. It could be something inspirational. It could be anything that comes to mind. So I'll start by asking the question left from the last guest. So we had Bruce Nickel, who was the bass player for Idle Sons, and he's gone on to be one of the top live guys in Canada with Matthew Good and Theory of a Dead Man and Finger 11, all these amazing bands. So Bruce Nickel's question for you, without knowing that you were the guest, his question is, what is the worst day that you had that when you look back in retrospect was actually a good thing? So maybe something that at the time looked like something horrible, and now looking back, it's like your life wouldn't be what it is today without that having happened.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone in your band think that the world is flat?
So that's your question for the next person? Okay.
I was just trying to think of something stupid.
No, that's all good. Nobody's asked that. Earth is flat. So there's the question. And then we just, so there is the question for you though. So from Bruce on the last episode, his was, what is the worst day you had when looking back? And now, you know, hindsight is 2020, that the worst thing that happened to you or a really bad day that you had, it actually ended up being a good thing. Things worked out in the end. Anything come to you?
Wow. It has to be music related, I'm assuming.
No, not necessarily.
Well, divorcing my first ex-wife.
Okay.
I don't know. It's the first thing that came to mind, dude.
Hey, we'll go with that, man. We'll go with that. That's a solid answer. All good. So again, we'll be respectful of your time. This is episode 100. This episode means a lot to me. It's such a big deal that you were able to come on here as the guest. And man, I love all 5 albums that you put out here. I hope that our audience is discovering these albums for the first time if they haven't heard them before. So it's like we're paying it forward, doing our duty as music lovers to keep the next generations listening to the all-time greats. So John, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Joel. I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone out there for listening too. Appreciate y'all.
There we go. So to our listeners, to the John fans, to the Stain fans, to the Lydia's Castle fans, thanks for tuning in for the last couple hours, and we'll see you on the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. What I want to know is, who would you like me to sit down with next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know by reaching out to me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel. And you can find me on Twitter and Snapchat at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.